Hey there, today I'm going to show you a few ideas on how to use your DJI Pocket 3 for content creation, starting with this talking head shot. Here are the camera settings I'm using to film this. You don't have to use the exact settings I did, but I recommend keeping your ISO as low as possible to reduce noise and shooting in D-Log-M to give yourself the most flexibility when color grading in post-production. Here's how the shot looks without any color grading, pretty boring and dull. And here's how it looks with color grading, much better in my opinion. Moving on, to make the shot a bit softer, I'm also using the Freewell Pocket 3 Quarter Mist filter. This filter essentially fades the shadows and softens the highlights, making skin tones appear smoother. Just for comparison, here is how it looks without using the mist filter. And this is how it looks with the mist filter. Next, to add extra bokeh to the edges of the frame, I've used the focus background in DaVinci Resolve with these adjustments. First, I masked myself out with a circular mask and applied a maximum fade to affect only the edges of the frame. Then in the effects settings, I set the blur to 0.36 and the anamorphism to 1.5 to make it look more realistic. The best tip I can give you with this effect is not to overdo it, otherwise it looks too fake. Here is a before and after, before and after. Anyways, in terms of lighting, I have a key light with a 60 by 90 centimeter softbox on my left, pointing downwards, illuminating me. A white foam board on my right to fill in the shadows on my face. One practical light on the table behind me. One inside this shelf. One above this shelf. And a tube light mounted to my curtain rail behind me to add the teal color you see in the background. I know I'm using a lot of lights, which most of you don't have access to, but if you're going to use your Pocket 3 as a talking head camera, you will at least need a good key light to illuminate yourself. I would suggest starting with a light that has at least 60 watts of output and a large enough softbox to make the light as soft as possible. However, if you don't have the funds to buy this, at least consider moving yourself as close as possible to a window with a natural light source to achieve soft lighting. Regardless, for audio, I have my shotgun microphone connected directly to the camera using the Boya BYK4 3.5mm to USB-C adapter with the audio gain set to -7 in the camera's settings to achieve proper audio levels. From my experience, it's best to adjust the audio gain until you see a slight orange on the audio meter for proper audio levels. Otherwise, you can easily clip the audio. Another way to use the Pocket 3 is for overhead shots, which it does really well because of its wide angle field of view and short minimum focus distance. This angle is great for filming unboxing videos, product b-roll and general b-roll, and it's very easy to set up. Just need to find a way to mount the camera horizontally and have access to proper lighting. Here is a breakdown of this simple overhead setup. First, I have the Pocket 3 extended horizontally from my tripod using a selfie stick to keep the camera exactly above the center of the desk. Then for lighting, I'm using the same key light I used before, positioned at about a 75-degree angle, as close to the desk as possible to keep the light as soft as possible. Also, I'm using this textured paper background to make the background a bit more interesting. Otherwise, it looks like this, a bit boring in my opinion. With the background, it's definitely a bit more interesting. I'm going to leave links for this background down below. And for audio, I'm using the Rode Lavalier 2 lavalier microphone, which is connected again directly to the Pocket 3 using the Boya BYK4 USB-C to 3.5mm adapter. Another way to use the Pocket 3 is as a webcam for live streams or video calls by plugging it directly into your computer with a simple USB-C cable or using the DJI Mimo app on your phone. However, there are a couple of things to consider. This mode is limited to 1080p at up to 60 frames per second and does not support external microphones, so you'll need to use a separate audio source as I'm doing right now with my lavalier microphone, but you can at least change the exposure, white balance and focus settings, record directly to the SD card for backup, and use tracking by double tapping on yourself on the screen to have the camera follow you wherever you go. Just for comparison, here is how the built-in webcam on my MacBook Pro M3 looks like compared to the DJI Osmo Pocket 3 without doing any color grading in post-production. Here is the MacBook Pro again, Pocket 3, MacBook, Pocket 3, MacBook and Pocket 3. Let me know down below which one you think looks better. The next and my favorite way to use the Pocket 3 is for B-roll shots. This camera has a field of view and aperture equivalent to about 20mm f5.6 in full frame terms, allowing you to capture great wide-angle establishing shots with decent background or foreground separation. Here are a couple of tips and tricks to get the best results when shooting B-roll with the Pocket 3. First, consider using ND filters to achieve natural motion blur in your shots. Next, try to lock the camera's focus by setting it to single point focus and tapping on your subject on the screen to prevent the camera from focus hunting. If your subject is moving, consider using subject tracking by double tapping on it on the screen. If you're not happy with your subject's default tracking position, try changing it with the joystick. Next, try locking the gimbal by pressing and holding the joystick for better camera control. Try mounting the camera on a selfie stick or monopod to achieve cinematic crane-like shots. Shoot in D-Log-M to get the widest dynamic range and flexibility in post-production, and use intentional camera movements. My favorites are the push in, pull out, slide, and up, down, boom. I've made a whole video about camera movements with the Pocket 3. You can watch it right here. Another way you can try using the Pocket 3 is as an action camera by mounting it to your motorbike or car, like I'm going to do right now for the first time with my motorbike. I have the camera mounted on a magic lamp, and I'm gonna try to mount the magic lamp on the handlebar of my motorbike and see how it works. I'm not sure if this is the best idea, but hopefully it works well enough. All right, so when we are rolling, the camera is shaking all over the place. I'm not sure if it's gonna be good for the gimbal's motors. Let me try to flip the camera around, see how it looks, and also show you where I am driving around. This is definitely something I would not recommend doing with the Pocket 3, to be honest, because the camera is vibrating all over the place, and I fear that over time, if you're going to do this a lot of times, it's going to damage the motors, and then the camera is going to be basically useless. So don't mount your camera on your motorbike unless you have some special accessory to do so that will prevent all these crazy vibrations. All right, finally, you can obviously use this camera for vlogging like I'm doing right now, which is probably the main reason why most people buy this camera in the first place. I think this is a fantastic vlogging camera, mainly because of its great stabilization performance and wide angle field of view, equivalent to about, like I said, 20mm in full frame terms. However, if you have the Freewell wide angle lens adapter, which I forgot to bring today, but I'm going to show you B-roll over this of how it looks, it will turn the 20mm field of view to 18mm, and if you have the DJI one, it will turn the 20mm field of view to 15mm. I'm going to leave a link down below to both of these filters so you can check it out yourself. Now let me give you a couple of tips on how to improve your vlogging experience with the Pocket 3. First, I recommend using automatic exposure and white balance, as it makes switching quickly between locations much easier. The Pocket 3 does a great job of determining the correct exposure and white balance for most scenes. However, if you want to take your vlogging shots to the next level and achieve natural motion blur in your shots like I do right now, you can use ND filters, set the shutter speed to 1/50 or double the frame rate, and the ISO to automatic. Finally, I recommend setting the gimbal mode to follow or the new FPV locked mode to make it much easier for the camera to follow your hand movements, or you can just simply double tap on yourself to have the camera track you automatically when vlogging. Let's do a quick comparison between follow mode and FPV locked mode. This is the follow mode. Let me move the camera quickly, try and confuse it, up and down. It's a bit slow here, but when moving like this, it's totally fine. Now this is the FPV locked mode. Same performance here when moving it to the sides quickly. Wow, much better when moving it up and down. It also balances the camera much quicker than before. Let's try tracking. So now I'm tracking myself. Okay. Okay, the tracking loses me. So the FPV locked mode is definitely the best one to use when vlogging. The follow mode is also good, and the tracking one is good when doing very slow and precise movements.